Hello and welcome everybody to EGF Season 3, Week 1 of Counter-Strike. This is going to be a kickoff stream for this Counter-Strike League. It's actually going to be the first time that EGF is jumping into the Counter-Strike scene. We have 3 matches for you tonight, and to break them all down and carry you through it, it's going to be myself, Los, and joining me on the mic is the man with a fearsome beard to match his name, Viking.
Great to be here. Great to see some of this coming for the first time. It's been a dream of mine since we've been doing this with EGF. It's been 6 years, and this is the first time we've ever run a CSGO league or match. So I'm really excited to kick this off with Siena versus DePaul. And based on what we've seen in terms of some of the research that we did beforehand, should be some really interesting matches. It seems like a lot of people are really favoring Vertigo and Ancient, which is a little bit outside of what I would have expected, just sort of based on what we know about some of the skill levels. So this should be a pretty exciting evening of matches for us.
Oh, definitely. And speaking of these first two teams, not only is this our first step into Counter-Strike scene, this is also a good first look at the collegiate scene. The two squads that we're coming in with, they are pretty new to some serious competition when it comes to CS. So this is going to be a tone setter going forward and seeing what these schools can do and if they got some serious skills to get ahead of the pack on this week 1.
Yeah, based on some of the interviews that we did earlier last week during our media week prep for all this, we had a lot of players talking about how they were kind of coming into this for the first time, like you said, as a competitive team. Some of them have been playing, like on DePaul, for example, for quite a long time. Been friends for a long time, but this is kind of the first foray into something that's a little bit more serious and a little bit more intense, as it were, in terms of the competitive level. And based on how we've seen some of these schools competing against across some of these other games and how seriously their programs overall take it, I should expect that even though we're probably going to see some of those early season, shudders and the shakes a little bit, I imagine will probably settle in the first couple of rounds as they always do. We'll be able to see some. I'm hoping for some interesting strats, a little bit, beyond just the rush B classic kind of things. And if that comes together, then again, should be a really exciting night. And hopefully, with all of our CS:GO server fun that's been happening over the last couple of minutes, we have a pretty smooth operation.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can't knock the rush B no stop when all else fails. You just got to commit to it.
Yes, I am very excited, especially since our first map is Mirage. So, as you can see on the schedule here, we'll be doing Siena and DePaul, then Villanova, Marquette, and then Iona versus South Alabama. All of these matches are set as a back-to-back best of one. So we're doing double headers for each school. We started to see picks and bans come out a little bit earlier. So we saw some comfort picks in Mirage out of Siena College, and then DePaul picked Vertigo for the second map. So again, Mirage, very typical, super common map across every level of play. So no surprise there. Vertigo can be one of those separating maps where you have some folks that once you get to a point where you understand rotations and especially the utility on that map, it can be a really, really nice pocket pick to keep everything kind of balanced in your favor. So I have absolutely no idea what to expect in terms of what they're going to come into all these things with. Maybe they're just trying to get them off their game and play around. Although I did see a couple pretty high level players off of DePaul, like, face level 10s. So we're pretty good. So I think we're ready to go into the game. So I'll kick it back over to you, Los, to get us started.
All right, well, let's jump into Mirage. That is definitely my favorite map, and we're already getting pretty deep into this game right now. It's over on round 6, and it's looking like a retake situation that has already been taken back. Siena College just cleared out sight with the 2 up kills coming from Breezy, and that will add a 5th round to their repertoire. Looking pretty solid so far on the defensive half for them.
Yeah, I think probably a little expected, just sort of based on where everybody's at in terms of the skill level that I talked about earlier. Saw some face at level 10s on the side of DePaul. If you, again, as always, you start off with an advantage winning the first round or two, as we missed in the first couple there, kind of the normal score line that you expect to see here.
I'm liking the buy of 2 ops right now. Good for them to hold it down and actually getting a bit aggressive with a push over into apartments. See how that works out for them. We'll spray through that wall, doesn't find much of a connection, but there is somebody waiting in there. It's Wizard, who will not find that first pick. It's going to be God Jaeger.
Tough when you lose those early first round kind of elements when you're trying to focus on getting that lurk and get some of the information. It seems like they're really favoring this sort of center of map opportunities, trying to control mid, trying to see what they can get out of it. But DePaul's not really giving them much to work with on that front. So being on 3 to 4 is still a super winnable situation, but they seem to be kind of stalled out in that mid area.
Oh yeah, they look really pinched, but they're forcing themselves through connector. It does seem that they might have themselves a good advantage. They might be able to take sight, or at least just play to get out of there. It's all up to Mike Metz, who's put himself in a 1v2. This became a lot more doable than it was a few moments ago.
Yeah, you see him starting to work up Cat. There's definitely that smoke that looks like it's about to fade in that connector, so he's got to move quickly. But playing from that market area gives him the opportunity to hopefully get into window should give him some flexibility, but they're going to hear him drop if he decides to commit to that, which could obviously be super dangerous.
Yeah, they're not making any strong commitments to a rotation just yet, just playing out time. 15 seconds left on the clock for him to make a move, and he will commit over to B. But he does have got Jaeger to deal with as Breezy's on the other side of the map. They will give that plan. He's going to go for the swing, and he catches him with the bomb out. Another round over for Siena.
Yeah, it was tough when you are not only playing against two opponents, but also the clock, and you have to, clear a site so quickly. You can maybe guess that they're going to hold and mark it, but it's really tough to make that call with such short time. So now they're in a situation where they still have a reasonable buy. That scout that they're probably going to send out towards mid, maybe take on the op could be a little challenging, although they're all grouped up towards A now. So maybe they're going to look for an execute and just try to get some of those early picks from the scout there and see what they can make of it.
Definitely no strong commitments yet. There is a lurk, I believe, by Mike or OCU, who's making their way through T-Apps right now with the P90, probably trying to get a close kill and just make something happen. Play off an initial pick, and then they'll actually send out quite a few smokes to get some confusion over onto A site, but they will not commit to it. It's a fake for sure, but they do have one player in Palace ready to take a shot if somebody slips up and pushes.
Yeah, you can see DePaul is still committed to the A site there, although they started to pick that out as obviously people coming on to site. You see that opening kill, and it's that battle, and they're trying to get the bomb in to get that down and hopefully in a safe position.
Ooh, a misstep with the smoke. They're going to try and make their way into the store here, but there won't even be a need for a flank as Nafy, over from Arches, takes down a third. That was a huge round for Nafy, at least so far, because we didn't see it immediately, but they picked up 3 kills while everyone was trying to make their way outside of apartments.
Yeah, this is another tough situation in that 1vx, this time with Wizard on it, and not able to get that is he goes into the murder hole position and gets taken down by a squad in that op position. So again, it is DePaul that's on the CT side right now, and Siena on the T side, so we'll get those labels switched in just a second. But right now, DePaul looking super dominant, and we'll see if Siena can bring anything back before they get over to the CT side.
Yeah, okay. I must have misread the labels, but regardless, this is looking very strong for the CTs right now. They are forced into a light buy, seeing 1 Mac 10 with Wizard as he moves through tunnels, but it's not going to be too much. They have to play off of like the first contact. Someone has to be close with that pick, but Got Jaeger has held that position before, tight in the edge of apartments, and it's been a strong position for him so far.
Yeah, you saw some of those early kills in the previous rounds where it wasn't, it definitely set some of the plans from Siena into a little bit of disarray, but we'll see that execute. Seems like he got some good flashes there, although he is able to take one before the rest of the team gets into the site. Now that they are dealing with getting the bomb down as fast as they can, trying to get that money for the next round.
Oh, and there are some players waiting by Arches looking for that retake, but Mike Metz with a good kill allows them to survive just a little bit longer, and Nafe will go down. But Mike Metz, he's all alone, facing off against this op. This could be a huge opportunity, but behind bench, he will be caught out with a headshot from the op. Another round they've lost, but it still was a good eco round for them, getting the plant and taking away some rifles from the enemies.
Yeah, if I'm Siena, even with the score line it is, I look at that last round as a positive. They got the bomb down. They have enough money to buy into this with some utility. It gives them a little bit more flexibility as they're thinking where they're going. It seems like they're going to favor the B side again, and they're just going straight for it. So we might see that classic rush B strat.
No stop. They gotta keep it going. But somebody will look through tunnels, look underground, see what's up. Push, however, will be dampened, slowed down as an instant was dropped over by T-Apps. Because Guy Yeager has, I was about to say, has a grip on that position. He lost it so quickly. Low key and the rest of the squad are going to be able to push up, but we do have a cheeky angle coming in from mid. That won't work out as they're just going to get mowed down running through apartments.
Yeah, that was a tough position. They forget to clear get right and jump out with the bomb, just trying to go for that quick plant, which, given the situations that they've been in the last couple of rounds, I totally understand where they're coming from in that perspective. But you got to always assume that you have somebody on that cap position or in that get right position ready to get you as you full waterfall out. So a little bit of a misplay there. It was a good thought, but we'll see what they come back with this kind of mixed buy, seeing if they can get somebody with that scout maybe, or I guess maybe take the long range fight with the P90 and see what happens, which did not go well.
No, and assist flash over from Wizard to help his teammate take the fall. It's not going to be a very good position for them up on mid, especially if you're trying to peek down mid with a P90. That's not where you want to be with that weapon for sure.
Well, what's they say? Spray and pray. So maybe a little bit more prayer there than anything, but they give it their all. And now we've got Tover, in this 1v5 situation, probably not expecting to get a whole lot done as we almost is clearing out the spots. You hope for a miracle sometimes, you take the moral victory of at least he got a couple points of damage down on the squad there before he ultimately met his fate, but it's still developing quite a mountain that needs to be climbed. It looks like we will see what happens in the next 30 seconds.
Seems there may have been a tech issue. However, just taking a look at their buy so far, low-key, with the AK, he is going to be one of the few players who can pull out that rifle. It does seem that they have a good economy with OCU, but the money is low. If they decide to pick up a rifle, they're not going to have much utility. I wouldn't say it's an eco round, but they won't be able to do a full buy.
Yeah, and as they're getting into now, it's round 12. So as you're thinking through your strategy, trying to figure out what's going to happen and how are you going to try to claw back 2 or 3 rounds, just get whatever you can before you get on the CT side and give it your best. It's a tough position to be in because you have to make that choice between what happens in terms of your economy, your round count, and trying to position yourself best to take it back. It seems like our GoTV issues are all good, so we're back into mid round, and it seems like Siena's doing pretty well, all things considered.
Yeah, they got their second round looking pretty good, Siena. This is what we want to see. If you could take it 3 more rounds, that is going to be a more respectable finish. If you have a bit of a weak start. Wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
It looks like they won another round.
Just win all of the rounds and everything will be fine, I guess.
It's a lot easier to win a game when there is no opposing team, Viking.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I'm certainly here for it to see, I guess, how this plays out for such a bold tactic. Although it seems we have players rejoining, so we'll probably have that resolved, and then we have a situation where they're going to have to come back and figure out what momentum that's going to deal with. And what a fun situation that we're going to have to deal with on the scoreboard part of this.
Yeah, well, that is going to be an issue for our lovely organizers. See, me right here, I just get to talk about it. Now, I don't make the decisions. I just get to see what happens.
Yes, the fun part about Face It is they don't have a great way to deal with mid-round crazy problems like that, which don't happen super frequently because they should just turn into automatic pauses. So We're gonna take a second to figure out what's going on with that, and then we should be right back into the action.
Yeah, of course, these are going to be some hiccups you run into when it comes to online play. It's expected, especially when you have to go through third-party systems. And, it is what it is. The game shall go on, and the teams are still here to compete. It is a best of three, so there is plenty of time for all the skills to be displayed and all the headshots, all the dinks to be dunked. That's a term that's used by a lot of people. Don't question me on it.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what Siena can do on the CT side. Sometimes it's just that kind of change of momentum is what makes the difference. And it seems like everybody's just kind of immediately buying back into where they were before. So it seems as soon as Pango gets back in the IGL from Siena, we should hopefully be able to get everything in the way that it should be.
Yeah, of course. And I would say momentum has so much more impact in a game than people would be led to believe. If you are on such a good round spree, say you get to round 15 and you just can't push it over the edge, you don't have the momentum. It's kind of hard to just close it out when you're in a position like that. And your opponents keep adding rounds, adding rounds, adding rounds, and you are still stuck in that hole at 15. It's a tough hill to climb over.
Yeah, but like you're saying, they got that first round back into it, which may have been a little bit of server grace, helping them out a little bit in that position. So if they're positioning themselves to be 10-5, I think that while this map is pretty well balanced in terms of T versus CT, I feel like CT ends up being the more comfortable place to play from. Uh, and as a result of that, I think we're probably in a pretty good position for Siena to make a respectable run back to it, and then see what happens on Vertigo. Not that we're writing this off by any means, but certainly the way that it's been going, if that keeps up in terms of the momentum for DePaul, we'll definitely expect to see some, uh, maybe quick rounds, maybe some good shots. I don't know. It could go either way.
Yeah, of course. This is still the first game of the first week of the season, so maybe the hands aren't hot, the guns aren't ready, and it takes some time to shake the dust off and fully grow into your form and, get up to speed with the rest of your squad, have that full mind body connection with your teammates. Maybe not the body connection, the mind connection.
Yeah, and absolutely. And like we were talking about before, all these teams are first time competing together for the most part. So we're seeing some of that starting to gel together. It looks like we're back to normal. We hope. Seems like the server issues are more or less resolved, and everybody's just going with it. So we're going to see the last two rounds with DePaul on the CT side play out and see if Siena can make something out of it.
I was about to say, let's see what Wizard can do with that op.
It was
the
a bold
no.
attempt. They knew what they were going to try to do. If we kind of think about the way that they've been playing a lot of this, they've been kind of switching between like that sort of attempt in mid, whether that's through under or top mid, and then they've been favoring the B site with some of these like A smokes where they're trying to deal with that right now. You see him getting held up a little bit and running into some of those challenges. Great kill out of Mike Metz there, so maybe this will be their round.
Ooh, Topher looking to peek around through A main, doesn't make it through as he's off through a smoke. Now there are two more players who are ready to try and take this site. However, one of them over on mid might be able to do a good push through connector, catch him off guard as bomb carrier low-key right now isn't in the most favorable position.
But if Mikey gets this kill around the corner, oh, they're so close. Oh, perfect kill. That's exactly what you hope to see. Oh, Mike, don't overextend, buddy. But you get to see that kill on the A site. You get the bomb down. He knows that Jaeger's probably coming through this jungle position. And now we got this 1v1 for what is a great looking end for this first half.
This is very doable for low-key right now. He can hold that position and wait, just bait out Got Jaeger. It's all about that first shot. Even though he has less health, as long as he can make that one tap good, that'll be fourth round over for Siena. But no! Got Jaeger is too quick on the draw and does secure that kill and their 11th win.
It's a tough position, high pressure as always, and when you're dealing with someone who probably knows your position the way that he kind of was, looking towards the CT position, you got to do the best with what you can, and pull as much time off the clock as possible. But we saw that there just wasn't quite enough there. But if I'm Siena, I'm thinking, we took care of that. We found something that worked. We found a little bit of that weakness. Going in around 15, it doesn't make a huge difference, but at least there's something on the board for them to play around with.
The main issue for me was that overextension by Mike Metz. That was completely unnecessary. They had site control, and if they played together as a team, play for that first connection or contact with a crossfire or something, that would have been their round.
Exactly, and it's kind of interesting to think about what could have happened if it had been the other direction. It seems like that was certainly possible, but we see a quick cleanup from the CT side. We're going to switch sides and see if Siena can pull back this 12-3 deficit into something a little bit more in line with, a win.
Not insurmountable, but certainly will be a challenge for this squad.
Yes. I think that's always going to be the situation when you come into these types of rounds. Oh, excuse me. But with Siena and DePaul both kind of having different and respective challenges, we'll see how it goes.
Well, they're going to make their push over on through mid, as we do have one player standing by and Palace ready to make something happen. But Topher going to be the first to fall. See if they can capitalize on that one. A push into jungle from Nafy, but it doesn't work out for him. And Mike Metz, dude, low-key, they're holding it down. Nice. Was that a flank from low-key? Actually, he must have moved into A main to get that alternate angle while they push through connector. Well done in the pistols.
Very, very good, very clean round for that first setup. Exactly what they need to make that all possible. So I'm really hoping, for the sake of seeing where this match goes, that they can leverage that position into a round 2 win as well.
Of course, if they utilize those SMGs, we even have a rifle. We do have one M4 over on low-key after he certainly earned that one, but no utility really to speak of. I think, is that a decoy he decided to go with?
Yeah, why not? It's that kind of day.
Keep them guessing, but no. The only person who's going to be guessing is Nafy. Nave, can they land that shot? Will they overextend to try and give him another headshot? But it's going to be Mike Metz over from Connector, who does pick up 2, but will be traded out by a demigod. And now they have their hands on that SMG. What can they do with it? They still have to deal with a rifle with low-key, and they are converging on it, and it's low-key with the M4, picking up 2 to close out that second round.
Again, this is exactly what Siena needs to have in these early rounds. Pick up as much money, as much cash as you can, build up as much momentum as possible, and know that they're going to come out with these round 3 AKs. And if you can't win these rounds, then you're going to be back to square one. And obviously, with only 4 rounds between you and defeat, there isn't really a lot of margin for error. So you'll probably see probably a little bit more conservative play just to make sure that they have that position, even though we see Got Jaeger with that early kill out against Mickey Metz.
That's not a kill you want to have done on your team, especially as he's one of the 2 rifle carriers on your squad. Now this is going to be a mid play. It's all up to them on what they want to do. Wizard tried to make something happen over from Arches, but he's going to get picked out without a problem. Now all the players are defending A, and a quick rush over from OCU to have some presence over onto B site. Will he be able to find something? Someone will walk up to the window, but it's Breezy with an easy headshot. All up to the last 2 players, Low-Key and Topher. We're going to have to make that same push. And I don't know how well this is going to work out for them, because yeah, there it is. Topher's going down first. It's Low-Key who's making some hero plays these last couple of rounds. He's going to have to pull off an ace. It starts with 1. All you need to do is get 4 more.
Oh man, that's a cheeky position to be in, market with him sitting in the smoke, and it worked out obviously for DePaul there. It was really tough when you have that P90, as the only thing standing between DePaul and a completely open site. So especially when you get that first dink and you don't quite close it out, it's kind of heartbreaking. But we're now here on a save round with a few pistols and no util or armor really, except out of Loki. So we'll see if they can get a couple kills off of this. Again, try to build up that bank so they can go into the next 2 rounds with as much money as possible.
just a deagle, a flash, and a dream coming from Loki. And most of these players are playing it quite back. They don't want to get caught out, especially when they have such a disadvantage already. There is one player in jungle. That's Wizard, who's waiting for somebody to push through connector or OCU. He's got the dualies. What can he do in this duel right here? I don't think it's going to be much because he's going to be taken out with the frag grenade.
That's a tough position to be in. I mean, we certainly didn't expect a whole lot when you're doing pistols against full rifles and utility. But this is a good play by Mikey to get that first P250 kill and just kind of hold on to that AK the best he can. Oh, and he takes out the nade at the worst time. Classic CSGO timing. There's nothing you can really do about those. But again, they at least got the one kill. It's not a huge win, but it's something that hopefully gives them a little bit of confidence going into this. And this is one of these situations where, as we kind of look at the scoreboard, these are the opportunities where we really need Wizard and Topher, especially to kind of step up into these positions on their sites respectively, and see if they can put up that last big defense. Otherwise, certainly the way it's looking, Vertigo is kind of on everybody's mind.
Yeah, certainly. We do need those players to step up. At this point, it's been Mike Metz, one of the main carries on this squad, taken out as the first kill. Topher there to pick it up and hold on to site for just a little while longer, but he's all alone over on bench. There's 3 players converging on him. With Amali being sent over into bench, he will fall, but not before taking out another. Only 2 players left to take out this one round. The bomb will be planted on B. Now the cavalry, the defense, the retake is here to come back and secure a 6th round for Siena. Will they be able to do it? The first one to jump out of OCU. He looks to the left and finds that frag, and now it's all up to a demigod to hold it down from Arches. He's behind the smoke. They don't know where he is. Going for that defusal. It was a fake. Now it's for the peak. Can a demigod get 1 and 2? He does! He wins the round and pushes it to map point.
That was a tough moment. You know, when you're in that situation, you're kind of have a sense of where they are, but you're playing around that smoke, especially if it's in an easily spammable spot like that. You're doing your best to cover your teammates and kind of keep it all together. He took that wide peek through the cat arches there, and it just kind of caught everybody off guard on the Siena side. So it turned what was a beautiful looking opportunity to take back one of those rounds into a situation that just not exactly the way they hoped it is. And now we're on map point, and it looks like DePaul is off to a great start.
It seemed that Mike Metz was running it to the next map as he ran up into Palace with the Swag 7 and took such a long fight against the squad that it almost seemed he was just trying to get this one out of the way.
Yes, and I don't blame them at this point. They're doing their best, but seems like we're about to see round 16 go to the DePaul side, and that'll do it for this first map. So, minor technical aside, and some of the interesting elements there, it certainly was a good opportunity for Siena to kind of understand what they were up against and some of the higher level teams. As we look kind of down the scoreboard of all the different teams that are involved with this season, we're expecting that DePaul and Marquette are probably going to be our leaders, just sort of based on their existing skill groups. Siena kind of sitting in the middle of the pack with a lot of the other teams that are very similarly to everybody doing kind of the same type of approach of being a new team, trying their best and see what works. And to Siena's credit there, we saw some really great efforts out of Loki. There were some great rounds where, other than just a couple of those mistakes at the end, think back to one of the earlier rounds, post plant for Siena, getting into that 1v1 situation, just not quite getting that timer down to a position to win. And then, of course, in that 2v1 that we just saw at the 15th round for DePaul. So I think they've got some cool things ahead of them, certainly some stuff to work on, but all of that's for the future. Right now, we're going to be looking at Vertigo coming up pretty shortly. So who knows? This is one of those maps where you can have people that are incredibly good at it out of nowhere. You can have people running around having no idea where those shots are coming from and doing their best. But I'm excited to see it as one of our opening maps for the series.
Yeah, the use of verticality in Vertigo is a great, interesting mechanic, and I think it should show the true skill if they have the ability to. They were having issues checking corners, but can you check corners while looking up as well when it comes to that offensive rounds? Now, I do believe that Siena has some skills to work with. They have to rely on two players, but if they could play around Loki, if they could play around, uh, his name slipped my mind, I forgot, but who was also bringing in some heavy hits on multiple rounds. If they could just see the leadership and follow their leads and, take angles like them, I do believe that they could have a stronger showing throughout this season, if not this series right now.
Yeah, and I think the benefit around Vertigo, especially if they end up taking CT side in the beginning, the short rotation times from one side to the other should favor the fact that they have some of those stronger players that are definitely coming through clutch in the situations where those rounds really came down to that 1v2 or 1v1 situation. So I think that this is totally a position where Siena could come out and bring a pretty strong showing. It'll be a little tough because I think across the board, DePaul showed a pretty strong defense when they were on the CT side. And in Vertigo, where if you are familiar, with the positions, you're hitting up those right angles. There's lots of cheeky angles that you can play on any site. There's a lot of variance from position to position. It's not quite as set up as you see in other maps necessarily. And as soon as you get that utility, it can be a real difficult time to even get onto a site. But again, playing with sign queues and all those types of things, lots of possibilities, lots of variations that both teams can try, even if they're just playing a default each time. So I think that this is something that we can genuinely say we probably favor DePaul a little bit, just sort of based on what we saw on that last map. But it isn't something that's guaranteed by any means.
Well, I do believe this also favors DePaul because this was their favorite map. Their best map right now is Vertigo, as they had previously mentioned. So this is going to be a bit of a learning experience for Siena, I think, going forward.
Very much so. But hey, at least for the sake of Siena, who had mentioned that Ancient was one of their least favorite maps to play, they avoided that for the time being. I don't think we've seen that yet in any of the other matches that have gone on. So, uh, you know, I I am really curious to see how they do this because we didn't really talk about it in those early interviews and how they were feeling about it. I think just sort of based on some of their early elements of what we see with a new team, you're going to focus on a lot of those core maps. Your Mirage, your Dust 2, your Infernos, and then as you start to expand out from them, get a little bit more comfortable with the, I would say, fringe if you're thinking about it from a pug perspective, but certainly a little bit more core when you get into competitive. And now seeing more with Ancient come back into it, I'm pretty excited to see more of these maps that I don't get to play as often.
Well, I definitely think we're going to see Ancient on the ban list for quite some time, as teams are probably going to want to focus on maps they already know, like you were saying, that core list of maps. And if there is, this is a league game, it's important that you get the dub. This isn't a ranked, GG, go next. You want to make sure that you're going to be putting yourself in the best position possible and taking a risk on a newer map or a less familiar map like Ancient might not be something that most of these teams want to try out. However, if you have the knowledge that another team isn't so good with Ancient, that might be your first pick. If they're trying to ban out another map, you ensure you get that one for yourselves.
Exactly. And the way that the league scoring works for this, it's all set up as, best of ones with round differential being the tiebreaker. So even if you're in a situation where you're facing, like in this case, Siena versus DePaul, you saw a lot of instances where Siena could look at this and say, this is kind of a scary site to attack because we know some of these players that gave us a tough time on the last map are. They can at least go into it and say, the more rounds that we get, the better position we are against some of those other mid tier teams that we're going to see on a regular rotation. So, the kind of mind games that you get to play in your head as you're thinking through the longevity of the season. We've got 16 weeks ahead of us across these two splits in the fall and the spring before we even get into the conference championships. So, I think the ability to kind of look and do your best in these positions are a good way to strategize if you know that you're not mechanically as strong as your opponent. So across maps, across mechanics, across all these types of things, lots of opportunities to still find value, even if it ends up being a 2-0.
Of course, this is still week one. There's plenty of time for all of these teams to improve. It's not set in stone that DePaul will always be on top or Siena will always take an L against DePaul. There's any possibility of any combination of different teams will have different outcomes. That's just the name of the game. It's up to anyone. It's up to their own personal performance. But Speaking of their personal performance, let's see how they're going to be doing on Vertigo, as I do believe the map is going to be ready in just a few moments.
It is. And while we're at it, the other cool thing to note about this map is it's one of our cross conference in terms of our athletics associations. So Siena out of the Metro Atlantic, across the board, especially in these first couple of weeks for all the other games, are playing against other MAC schools. So primarily Northeast, primarily around the like New York, New Jersey area. DePaul coming out of Chicago as part of the Big East. This is one of those first opportunities where we're seeing some interconference play. So it's also just a little bit of that extra context, a little bit of that extra competitiveness and how they represent their home territories, if you will. I'm, continue to say how excited I am. And here we have the knife round to pick sides. So we missed this in the first map, so I'm kind of curious to see what the knife skills of these two teams are.
Now, what's your knife strategy? Is it left click or is it right click?
A little, I think the combination is left, left, right. Do your best, get it through there. Siena having the superior rounds there worked out really well for them, so they're gonna pick sides. And I'm expecting probably we'll see a CT preference, just because this map certainly has the opportunity to build that up.
I'm glad we got to take a look at that knife round. I'm a big fan of that.
Yes. And so Siena did take the CT side, which expected, and there was a ping issue, so they're pausing and resetting, as there is of course going to be that type of situation because it's CS:GO. And when they come back in, we'll be able to kick it around, kick it off, and see if the fortunes favor Siena in this initial position. Although, based on what we saw in the first round of the second half last round, maybe they're pistol specialists. Maybe that's what they just always play with. Get out some deagles, some USPs, no problem.
Nothing wrong with being a Deagle hero, a Deagle demon, if you will, but we'll see. It's all good to land those one Deags, but you have to keep that momentum going. And we saw last map that they did have those rifles going into round 3 where they tried to hold on to them, but I believe it was Loki who was the first to fall. Picking up that was an expensive buy for them, and to lose control of that is a big deal. So getting those pistol rounds, great. Holding on to the momentum, better.
It's a tough mental game if you're Siena, because I don't think it's any surprising thing to say that that if you put a weapon like you just said in the hands of somebody on the DePaul team, any of that immediately becomes a threat, especially if they're in a position where they're on pistol armor or some other variation of like a kind of light eco, and that can turn a tide significantly. And while we talked about the short rotation times being a benefit for them to be able to look at Loki's potential impact and the sites overall, that also works against them, because if somebody gets a rifle off of a pick on, say, like the B side approach, the entire team can suddenly be there and be ready to take advantage of that. And suddenly something that seemed like a pretty, we'll say, safe bet turns into something that is disastrous.
Of course, sometimes playing it safe can really go wrong. You don't want to be playing to not lose. You have to play to win.
Yes. And luckily, we can see who's going to play to win because we have all the players back in the server, I think, if I count correctly. So we should see the unpause on pretty quickly. We'll see this first pistol round, and we'll see what DePaul can do.
I'm interested in the buy so far coming in from DePaul. 2 armor pickups and not any utility coming from either Loki or OCU.
Yes, it looks like we got the labels switched, so we'll fix that in just a second. But as you said, it is interesting that despite not having any armor on the part of Wizard, we also... Is that an error? I don't know how they ended up without armor, but just a USP. But I guess we'll see how it goes. Breezy taking up that first kill, and Mike Metz reporting, and it's a pretty quick tight tape for DePaul.
Yeah, that is an explosion over onto the site, taking them out pretty quickly. And all that armor they had did not come to much use. However, they did manage to get 2 frags on the side of Siena, but things aren't looking too good with that initial round. It seemed that they were caught with their pants down. They didn't know where the enemy could have been coming from at that moment.
Yeah, and as a result of that, we see DePaul immediately taking advantage of that fact with the bomb down in that situation, getting out those AKs. Even though that initial kill by Wizard definitely makes at least that emotional and moral victory in those early rounds, and maybe things makes DePaul think a little bit harder about what they're going to do next.
Yeah, the double AK on round 2 doesn't seem to be working out so well as Loki and OCU are putting in some work right now to try and keep him back, but Swab comes and hits him back with 2 kills of his own. It's all up to OCU. He might manage to find a rifle. He's only got the MAC-10 at the moment. And no, it's gonna be Breezy who catches him running through, probably trying to pick up that rifle. It doesn't work out. Second round over to DePaul. But they did manage to hurt their economy a bit, losing out on some weapons spent. But it isn't going to be enough. However, now they can pick up some rifles.
Yeah, it's exciting now to get those first 2 rounds out of the way, where you saw a little bit of back and forth, which is great. Now you see DePaul starting to attack this A site, and we'll see if Siena's up to the task of defending.
Breezy going through the smoke, looking behind that wall, seeing that someone was there, but they had to back off to try and bait it out, wait for their teammates, and Mike Metz, along with Topher, getting those 2 frags. Those are going to be key for them holding on to this site. Topher getting the upper angle, jumps up and finds a second. This is going to be a successful hold for now, potentially, but a nice nade from Squad does take one down. It's still a very much in favor round over for Siena, 4v1.
Yes, and he just cut out, but able to get that refrag from Loki. So that was a great example of a way that a hold can go really well. Those fast rotations coming in, and DePaul just kind of got stuck on the A ramp there a little bit, trying to deal with, deciding whether or not they were going to go for it in that 1v4 situation. So again, we were talking about in the pregame here, this is a total possible opportunity for Siena to really show some dominance, get as many rounds up on the board, and come into a very strong T half, even though we've obviously got quite a bit to go before that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Well, it might be another E hit. Let's see. They're creeping up slowly. They're ready to make a move, and they're running into the firing squad right now as Wizard and Topher are trying to keep him pinned down with the Demigod and the rest of the squad who are holding it. But Mike Metz coming out with a 3K and a nice swing gives them their second round.
All credit to Siena there for reacting very quickly, making sure that they had the opportunity to get some of those refrags and do as much damage as they possibly could as they were dealing with a pretty massive DePaul team effort through that mid area. So now we're back into a position where DePaul is on their back foot, dealing with Deagles and a Tech 9, trying to get whatever they can out of it.
It's a time where you really have to play away, play your space, but there will be some space created with that smoke as Loki is trying to get that angle and shoot some upstairs, but he will be traded out. Far back does manage to get one before falling himself, and it's all up to Wizard and Mike Metz, but now it's just Wizard who's holding it down for himself. It's 1v1. He doesn't know where the enemy is. He actually knows Squaw's coming through, trying to flank him, but he can't get it done. Wizard clutches it out.
Some great game sense from Wizard there to be aware of the threat coming from the middle area, making sure that they were holding angles, taking some of those fights where you don't really have a choice when you know how aggressive DePaul can be, and forcing them into those positions again, taking advantage of any advantage that they have, knowing that they're probably going to be in for a pretty long fight once DePaul has a set of utility.
Pushing up ramp, Navy picking up that right for squad. Now they're going to be following up. However, that Molly will keep them at bay for a little bit. See how long they will be stalled. OC sending out a flash, trying to create some confusion, but he can't get too much ground himself. That Molly will keep him back as well. But Topher with the first kill in this fight. It's not going to be enough. It's a 3v2 at this moment. It's not a retake just yet. They're still trying to hold this site as some are on ramp. Loki can find the first, and Breezy tries to get that trade. He will, but OCU is there for the pickup. A 4th round over for Siena College. Things are looking good for this squad in the second map.
I love what I'm seeing here. I think in contrast to what we saw on Mirage, you see a lot more confidence from Siena in terms of their refrags, their quick rotates, and making sure that they're there for their teammates as they're dealing with some of this DePaul aggression. And it's putting them in a great position to make sure that they're, again, racking up as many rounds as they possibly can on the CT side before they have to deal with the often challenging T strategy that comes with playing on Vertigo.
Heavy aggression from Mike Metz. He did move up a little bit, and he catches one out. That's Breezy, the first one to fall, and a great pick over from Mike.
Love when you get those opening kills. It feels real good. And now that they're aware of where they're at, they're able to pick that up. Mikey Metz getting that 4K. What a round from Mike there.
He tasted blood, and he wanted seconds, if not thirds. That was a great push over from Mike, a great read. You know, it was their eco, but that's the perfect time for him to come through and get those kills down. DePaul won't have to think for themselves and say, wait a minute, we can't let these guys run away. We can't let them run away with that theme of the night, that momentum that Siena College has right now.
If I'm on the DePaul side right now, I'm starting to think about how they can spread out that offense a little bit. I think one of the benefits that Siena has had in a lot of these fights is DePaul is primarily committed to one particular strategy, whether it's one of the several attacks that they made on the A site, or when we initially saw them trying to overwhelm that mid situation. So if I'm them, I'm trying to think about what are we doing as a default a little bit. Maybe we can play a little bit up more towards the B site, test out where Loki and Mikey aren't, and trying to take advantage of the fact that while there is a quick rotate, if you can find some of those opportunities to push through, to exploit the weaker players that they might encounter, or just overwhelm them with maybe a 2v1 or something like that, and try to get as much space in between them and that rotation between the sites, that'll at least give them the opportunity to get a bomb down, to get a little bit more of that economic pressure back into it, and maybe start to think about how they want to vary maybe their weapon selection, although right now having 3 out of 5 AKs is a pretty good position to be in. And I expect that we'll probably see that from a Demigod and Breeze, just sort of based on their money situation. But they might be considering buying something different, just to try to get some of those advantages. Maybe we'll see a Krieg for the first time today.
Well, I think going back to what you said about finding out where Loki and Mike aren't, you know, they did show out, and Mike is showing out supremely so far, but it's a team effort right now. We're seeing more kills in these first couple of rounds from Topher, OCU, and Wizard that we saw in a majority of last map. So they have stepped up in a huge way. It may not look like a lot with 5-4-4, but it is a big difference, taking off the pressure of some of their teammates.
Huge fan of the difference that we've seen between those players from the first map to now. Getting back into it, I've appreciated how, like you said, they've stepped up. They've had that impact. They've made it very clear that they're willing to, defend their dirt, as the football saying goes, and seeing some of this aggression from the DePaul side. Now we get to see if that Mike defense on any site continues to hold.
Oh yeah, he's holding. He's waiting for that initial push, but he won't be able to get that. That swing is too good from a Demigod, and this is opening it up. There's plenty of fire over on the site, forcing Topher back. He almost loses his life in the process, but I believe he'll be Wizard, who's sitting up on that box, waiting for them to fully make that commitment to sight. There goes a nade flying over him. Doesn't do too much damage. Navy is pretty low on this attack. Loki can stay alive and waits for the rest of his squad to make that counterattack. It's pretty good. Swinging out his Wizard like a madman on those boxes. He does manage to get one, but it isn't going to be enough. And now it's all up to Loki and OCU. Try and put together this full-on retake. Another game, quite solid, almost gets the job done on one player at least. This won't be an easy retake. We've seen him do something crazy before, but we won't see him do it again this round.
Much better execute from DePaul on that side. I was a little bit worried you saw him get hung up on the ramp a little bit there because of some of that counter utility from the CT side. And Siena was doing their best to try to play around those smoke walls, try to make sure that they were taking whatever angles they could. But you saw Loki was neutralized in that early part of the round, meaning that the impact that he typically has wasn't quite there. And we're seeing DePaul go straight back to it, so we'll see if Wizard can have a little bit better opportunity when you see that peak come out.
See, Wizard has taken this position back from Mike Metz. They may be using him as a bit of a sacrificial bait, putting a less priority fragger in that position because it allows Mike to swing over from top ramp in a much safer spot and stay alive with the rest of his team.
For being a map that wasn't picked by Siena, you'd think that maybe that was some sort of trick, just sort of based on the strategy that they have with some of these cross angles and some of the lengths that they're now bringing out. Oh, but he doesn't quite get the shot.
OCU with such a massive opportunity with that flank. It doesn't come through, unfortunately. And now Wizard is all on his lonesome. He rushes onto the site, doesn't check to the right. Has got Jaegers there for an easy pickup. Now the momentum is starting to shift. That timeout really allowed them to figure out what they need to change, and it's showing.
That was an unfortunate moment from a CEO there, just not able to quite get that flank. But if he did get that first shot, that round easily would have gone the other direction, and we'd probably be looking at a 6-3 scoreline right now.
Sometimes the easiest shots are the hardest to hit. And that surely showed with OCU on that moment. And now, oh, Mike Metz with a nice tap onto Breezy. He's going to have to take that rifle and play for his life, but OCU comes through to try and pick up a piece there and does manage to get not one enemy, but also his teammate in that one. Unfortunate.
It happens sometimes. Unfortunately, the hero of the A site, Mike Metz, not able to clean up the last couple of folks off of the T side, and it goes in favor of DePaul. So now we got a tied map, and this is kind of one of those situations where maybe it's time for Siena to just take a quick breath, recenter themselves the same way DePaul did a couple rounds ago. Remember what they've been doing, understanding that they're still seeing a lot of that pressure towards the A site, and a little bit of this play around mid from the squad, but still very attainable for them to win.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But that loss of Mike Metz is going to make it a little bit harder. Crazy. It'll be hurt, and it's Squall over on the other side. On that nice lurk. Catches him lacking, trying to go for that flank. Squall probably going to join the rest of the team over onto B, trying to make something happen here.
That was the redemption arc for OCU. We'll see if it plays out into a win for the round, but getting that 2K on the flank, definitely a good position to be in as they go into the last phase of this round in this 2v2.
Considering that they have just reunited, has shown how willing they were to be separated, how confident they were in those splits. Now it's Squaw. Oh, Squaw with the angle on Wizard. He wasn't even expecting it. Loki all alone, 1v2. We've seen him do something like this before, but we won't see him do it again here on round 11. Oh no.
Definitely seems like Squad is starting to get their confidence back under them. They're seeing some of the same level of shots that we saw from them on Barrage as they were getting through a lot of those quick rounds in those early stages. So now that we see a little bit more impact coming out from them, there's some pretty cool opportunities for some of those 1v1s, and I would love to see more of that low-key versus squad matchup, just because I feel like that's probably the best.
What the? Oh, what are you doing? Flying out like a madman, trying to get that initial pick, but it does not pay dividends at all. In fact, it just gave the confidence. It was a green light for DePaul to push through and get this easy round win. Wasn't eco, sure, but played a little more tactical, guys.
I did not expect that. I saw the markers moving on the mini map, and I thought maybe they're just gonna go for some like quick peek aggression, set up around sandbags and back of sight and whatever. But no, all of a sudden it's raining CTs, and it's more like a shooting gallery, just creating a lot of opportunities for DePaul to rack up those scores.
Well, now they have their rifles back. Siena has something to work with. They can make it happen in these last 3 rounds. Where are they going to come from? What are they going to expect? We might have an initial fight. It's low-key. He does pick up one. He's traded out by a demigod. This lurk pushing over on it might work out as OCU actually gets the first kill. He's going to be traded out by Squaw because he wasn't going to let that one fly, especially considering how low he got with his health. This is going to be hard for them to try and commit, or maybe not. We see one player coming through. It's Mike Metz, one of the heroes of this squad. Is he going to continue on through? No. Demigod picks it up and gets the plant. All up to Wizard now. They've suspected him out from the stairs. He had his opportunity to take out a demigod, but he missed the shot. And now this just became a lot more difficult for him. Tries to go for this retake. I know exactly where he is.
But a demigod on super low health, maybe not. It was a great try. Certainly a good effort to get a demigod down all the way to 1 health, but you deal with that 1 HP syndrome, if you could call it that. And suddenly you feel a little discouraged from continuing on when you're not really sure how much you hit them for and what you're dealing with on the other side of that.
No, definitely not a good feeling when you don't miss what could be a free frag. And now this is Siena. Moving over, we have the Nova, a legendary weapon, maybe in the hands of Wizard, but it doesn't really matter because he's on the wrong side. They're pushing over through to B, and it's all easy frags for DePaul right now. Spraying with that MP. It has much of an effect here. Finally, Topher is one who can land a kill onto Squaw, and at least just make a gun off their hands. It wasn't much of a big, fight back with those SMGs, but at least they got somebody.
Yeah, you take those when you can, right? I think the fact that we've now seen DePaul realize that they can play around that mid area a little bit more than they had, because before they were running up against A site, they were running into positions where there was really strong crossfires from Siena. It wasn't working. Now they're able to adapt. They're in mid more. Obviously, you've seen several plants on B at this point, so we're getting more opportunities to see that they've kind of figured out that maybe the other site's a little bit less protected in a way. But now they're back to the A site, and with that opening kill, we'll see if they commit to it.
Topher, one nice biting back and low-key with the P90, making something happen, but a good shot over from Wizard, picks up 2, and decimates their chances of taking this site easily. Last one is Squaw. We know he's a killer. We know he's a threat. He's at the bottom of ramps. Will it be low-key, who does secure a 6th round before halftime? And this is looking like a much better situation for Siena at this point.
Very excited to see that. While I certainly hold no bias for either team, I am always excited for a good matchup. I think in Mirage, between some of the technical challenges and just some of those, things that we saw not really giving Siena find the opportunity to get their feet under them, it wasn't the match that we were kind of hoping for. But came into this round, we saw some of those, the early pistols, the early gun rounds from Siena really showing what they could do, especially on that B site, especially from Mike and from Loki there, doing some really amazing work. So much closer to scoreline, much more exciting map, I think. And now that they're switching sides, I'm really curious to see whether Siena has the same level of comfort as they, switch to offense, or if we're going to see some situations where DePaul is able to kind of take the same positives that we saw from Siena and turn it up to 11 and start to see some of those crossfires, some of those other challenges that we, are very difficult to overcome if you can't find some of those picks.
All right, well, I want to see what Siena can do here on the offense. They've had some wacky rounds in terms of their eco. Well, we're getting a full rush over onto A. They're all making that play. They're all running through. Who will come through with the better duel?
Love to see these mid plays. Uh-oh. Ooh.
Wait. Oh, okay, yes. Now I understand. Sorry, the round already happened. I was totally confused. I was like, wait a minute. How did they manage to get rifles on a pistol round? It was a full eco coming over from Siena after missing that first pistol round. That threw me for a loop for a second. I was like, hold the phone. Hold the phone. What is going on here?
Yes, I felt the same. But now we're back in a position, and now they both have rifles. So this is where we finally come into a good position to understand exactly what they can do with these.
Of course, now it's an even fight. Let's see them make it happen. They got rifles in hands. Should be interesting. OCU looking toward ramp along with his teammate, but there is also some presence on B side on the stairs. It's Loki who doesn't check out a demigod hiding behind those boxes, and Squad looking for that alternate angle because they know someone else is there. They know that Topher is there lurking, or at least they just feel it.
It's really tough coming into that B site without any utility, and because you have so many angles that you have to follow, especially because you have that choke point coming into the stairs. But hey, you see this opening kill from Mikey. Maybe have the bomb over here, so if they move quickly, they should be able to take this site and get that bomb down.
They gotta go quick because the element of surprise has already been used. Mike Metz picking up a second one, but they need to get around off the ramp. But they're too slow on the draw, and it allows the rest of DePaul to come through and get that rotation, give them the support they need. Mike Metz did pick up 2, but he needs that support, the rest of the squad, to converge and put the pressure on him.
This is exactly what I was talking about a little bit, where we saw some of these same types of moments coming from Siena, especially in the first couple of rounds into the rifle buys and full buys. But DePaul is just moving a little bit more quickly. They're able to take some of these earlier fights and pick off some of these situations that Siena may not expect in these new ones. So you're just kind of dealing with these situations, and I mean, now that they're on this incredibly light buy, just hoping for the best. If they get a rifle, that'd be good.
Oh,
hey,
come on, a demigod.
take the M4.
Were you really thinking that was gonna work out completely?
Hey, you get the one, I guess. The worst thing is that you gave up an M4, which in this 2v1, yeah, you hate to see it.
They had the rifle, they had an opportunity, but they didn't have those corners checked.
Tough position to be in, but now we're back into a position where we'll see an op for the first time this map, I think, out of Loki. So again, those are the types of weapons where you can just see insane turns, especially on the T side here, depending on how they can use it, whether he's more aggressive playing it, like a Guardian might. You see some pretty interesting opportunities. No.
Unfortunate.
Mike just didn't seem to be aware of that potential boost, which, depending on how much you're willing to commit on the CT side, I don't blame him for it. But it's tough to lose that key player so early in the round.
Absolutely, and the big factor that played into that was they weren't cohesive. They weren't a full unit going up together, and when you're going up ramp by yourself, there are so many different angles you need to be careful for that checking up for that boost isn't going to be on your top priority. You're always on edge on that one. But speaking on edge, we are on the edge of this map and series as DePaul is only 2 rounds away from closing it up.
I was really hoping to see more from Loki when he bought into that op, but I didn't really see much impact either in positioning or obviously in frags as it translated later into the round. So I am sure that they had a plan for it. Unfortunately, it wasn't something that they were able to execute on in the way that they hoped didn't. But now they're playing in that position where they're playing for the win. They're doing the best they can with what the utility they have is. So I'd love to see a little bit more of that coming out, as they haven't been able to execute quite with that before.
Ooh, nice headshot from Topher, but I'm gonna be honest with you, Viking. I don't even remember an op being purchased, and that's really how much effect it had. But Loki with the flank, Squad was hoping to take advantage of that flashbang, but he wasn't expecting to get shot in the back. Now they do have sight of the retake. It's a 3v3 now after that frag from Breezy, but OCU's holding on for his life. Might he pick up a second? No. Wizard Mike Metz holding on because they're on the different site, actually. It was a total bait, or it was a great rotation. Either way, DePaul had no clue they were flanking around.
That was a fantastic play to watch, and we'll see if they get these shots. Oh, there's the first kill. Oh, really?
Wizard with a clutch holding on to that angle. If they got the kill on him right there, turning into a 2v1, we might be looking at 15-6 at this point, but that was such a great play from Siena. This is what we want to see from them. Taking advantage, playing different angles, making them guess where are they coming from, and executing where they're not.
Love when I get to see some of those off angles in those post-plan situations, because they can be incredibly frustrating if you're playing against them, but really fun to watch on the observer front. It's kind of like, when you see occasionally if, a team is really struggling in like League of Legends, you'll see that full rush down mid, which doesn't make any sense from a strategic perspective in the long term, but you can get some really interesting results out of it in the short term. So generally off angles, a little bit of a risk, but in that case, it turned out really well. Coming into this round, at least there's a little bit of hope.
Well, that Breezy op was baited out. Unfortunately, it wasn't going to work twice. The flashbang forced him to shoot. OCU knew that the angle was there, knew that there was an op looking at him, just wasn't ready for it. I guess the utility wasn't there as they blew through it in that initial haul of
Great kill from Mike there. Closer to the equalizer, and you see DePaul still respecting the fact that we could have another fake. Obviously, that worked out really well for them last round. So this commit to the B site definitely going to favor maybe.
Oh, come on. The second kill from God Jaeger will make it much more difficult. Topher does manage to get a trade out, but the numbers just aren't with him. The flick isn't there. And now we are on match point. Match and series point here for Siena or DePaul University.
I believe in you, Siena. You can come back. You can try. You can stretch this to a couple more rounds. Give us a couple more rounds of Counter-Strike overall.
It is possible. They still have some rifles on hand. Low-key only with 90 though.
Looks like that smoke missed a little bit, which is going to favor Siena a little bit in that situation. But the early picks on the offside, the first time that we've really seen impact from that other than last round. It's a tough round to see that coming out against Siena.
Does seem to be push over through to ramp. If they could commit to that. There's only one player over there, I believe. The off-user holding it down, and Breezy. Well, I mean, there's two off-users on this one. Breezy finding Loki, and Wizard is soon to follow. There's push is spread too thin. And even though it had some advantages earlier in this map, they've been found out. It's not working anymore. Nathan is pushing through, gets that frag. They know.
They're hunting for that last kill, that last round. It's a tough place to be if you're Mike, just trying your best. You see a little bit of play from NAF there, but hey, it was a good series. I think, Siena knew that they were up against a pretty difficult position coming into this map originally, especially when you're looking at some of those face-it lobbies as you're getting into the first part of it. So no easy task. It was particularly on display for us there in Mirage. As we were talking about, Vertigo comes back, much more competitive, much more entertaining. And I think that was kind of the first time that we really got to see Loki come into a position to really have that impact. And then talk about crazy impact, Mike, especially on that A site originally on the CT side, doing some incredible work for their team, getting a lot of those rounds, almost off his back alone. And then the rest of the team really coming in to support that. So while unfortunately the result didn't go their way in terms of the series, in terms of both of the maps, it is something where I feel like they have some really good building blocks to work around as they think about week 2 and beyond for the rest of the season.
Well, they may have lost their first match, their first showing in week 1. But on the bright side, I did see that Mike got a case, so, there might be something in there. Good consolation for us. I feel like we mentioned many of the players over on Siena College's side, and not many specific over on DePaul, and I feel bad, but they were all showing out pretty much equally on skill level, so there wasn't any one player to pick that was doing great, because all of them had just had a solid performance throughout the series.
Yeah, it's interesting how you have that kind of very strong duality between the two teams, where there was, like you said, much more individual standout efforts on the Siena side, especially round to round. But to Paul, consistently just very good. I think you can look at Squaw's effort, especially generally kind of being the one where you see the most on the kill feed and making a lot of those impact plays when we get into those like 1v1 or 1v2 situations. So it's a huge credit to DePaul for that entire team effort. And I think, again, as we talked about, they're probably one of those higher tier teams alongside probably Marquette, as we've seen. Again, this is first week, so we don't really know. But those will be matchups that we're really looking forward to seeing coming up later on the schedule.
Absolutely. And, stick around, folks. We still have 2 more matches on the docket tonight. And we'll get into those soon after we come back from a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to EGFC CSGO, everybody. Before we jump into the next one, we got to take in one of the players from that winning squad of DePaul University, and it's going to be Got Jaeger. Got Jaeger, thanks for coming through to the show, or at least coming through for an interview. You already showed up, but now you're giving us some insight.
Yeah, exactly. Glad to be here.
So how are you feeling after winning your first match in the inaugural season, the inaugural stream, and I guess inaugural match overall?
Yeah, I mean, it feels excellent, honestly. Just really proud of the team. Like, this is the first time out with this exact five-man lineup. We've had a lot of roster changes we had to make, so it feels really good to start off the season so strong.
As you're thinking about some of your map strategies there, I know Vertigo is one of the maps that you said is kind of your comfort pick, your favorite maps. So no surprise there in that second situation. But were you at all surprised, or I guess kind of in that normal situation of like, of course we're going to play Mirage in the first map because we just kind of see it everywhere? Or is there any particular considerations that you were thinking of that in preparation for thinking through to that map 2 position?
I think with Mirage, it's definitely an interesting place to kind of take a series. We kind of were predicting, based on kind of a bit of scouting, that we would kind of have the firepower advantage. So we were kind of more expecting them to take us to more of a nuke or an overpass or maybe an ancient to kind of throw us off a bit. So picking Mirage was a bit strange, but I think it's a comfort middle ground map. Obviously, kind of warm up the season, everyone's comfort. So yeah, so it was definitely a bit of a surprise, but we felt pretty well prepared on it. It was good to start CT side. I think that's a big mental edge where you're kind of forcing the other team to have to execute onto you. We just get to play back, react, and start in a really nice comfort place.
Coming back to the second map of Vertigo, after Siena had scored 5 rounds of victory, you took a pause, a tactical pause. What were you discussing in that pause that allowed you to just run away with that map?
Yeah, I think we're kind of DePaul from our past is a notoriously pretty streaky team, and all our players are very have good in-game IQ. So I think the first couple rounds we like to just see what the other team's offering, and then kind of let us all collect ourselves, and kind of each player's kind of like they were seeing this, how each player, the little nuances, that how the other team's playing, and so kind of then it's up to me. All those guys communicate really well with me, and I just kind of put the puzzle together, just make a few adjustments, especially in utility and pathing, and then just run away with it, and then just keep on with those adjustments, see if the other team can make their reactions back. We were lucky enough that they didn't have too much deeper in the playbook that we got to see at least. So yeah, so it was a really good comeback, really good information and calls from the rest of my team as well.
Very cool. And one of the things that we were talking about before we cut to break before earlier was Siena. I think we could all agree that there were a couple of sort of primary impact players that were really making it kind of difficult in some places. But on your side, we saw that there was a lot of, I would say, stability in how you were playing between different plays. So it was harder for us to pick out one particular impact player for your team. So I was kind of curious as you were thinking about your strategy. Is that to the point where you've just known each other for so long that you have sort of that second nature, or is that really down to how you're dealing with comms? And how are you thinking about that as a team going up against Siena in that case of having those particular threats?
Yeah, actually, this is a pretty new roster for us. Only myself and Breezy are returning members. But just myself as an in-game leader, like I play a very structured system, and everyone, like the discussions we've had in practice and stuff, is that everyone plays the system, and I feel like it's a lot more comfortable because then no one has to step up. Because in my opinion, aim is probably the least consistent part of Counter Strike. So if you have fundamental, really good utility usage, fundamental positioning, and setups where it's not on one person to have to frag or have to overperform in order to win the game. If it's a team effort at always, and then any individual effort is just bonus at that point.
Thank you for the insight, Got Jaeger, and for joining us for the interview. Congrats
so
on your
much.
win. Good luck for the next few matches
Thank
you
you.
have throughout this season.
All right. Have a
Thanks
good
so
one.
much.
Thank you.
You too.
All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Got Jaeger is running a pretty structured system with a new roster that's doing quite well so far from what we saw in their first matchup. And the action will continue with our next match in just a few moments, folks. But we're going to head back to a quick break. So stay tuned.